Okay, so let's take a look. Today I'm going to skip ahead to the end first before I show it to you. So let's look at the assignment here. So today is about printing and plotting. So there are things called printers and there are things called plotters. Remember that AutoCAD existed long before there was even such a thing as a mouse. And therefore, it existed long before there was such a thing as a large format inkjet or laser printer even. And so the way that AutoCAD originally would get things onto paper is people made these things called plotters that actually was like a robotic arm that literally held a pen. And that pen would draw on the paper the thing that you had drawn in CAD, okay? And that was called a plotter. Nowadays, I mean, I can't think when the last time was I actually saw a pen plotter, but we still use that term, plotting, and printing. That being said, most of what we do these days is electronic. It is helpful to have your paperwork actually on a piece of paper in a load-in or in a shot hole or something, just like so that you don't have to pull it up on a screen. There's something about having it on a piece of paper, I think, still. But generally speaking, your paperwork's going to live two lives. It's going to live the digital life and it's going to live the printed life. So the good news is that the process of plotting and printing it to a digital file is essentially the same as printing and plotting it onto a piece of paper through a printer. The way that that AutoCAD handles that is the same. So what you learn when you learn how to do this, you're going to learn. I'm not going to actually make you spit this out of a printer for this assignment. But just know that the process is the same, whether you're printing to that actual printer or you're printing to a PDF creator printer object. It's the same. Okay. Just instead of spitting out a file, it spits out a piece of paper from a printer. Okay. So the main thing, though, is with this assignment, notice I don't have any visual example here. So this is the first assignment I'm going to give you where you get to actually decide what this looks like. Okay? So hopefully that doesn't freak you out too much. But what you may notice is that in some of the examples that I've given you before, there have been, let's see. Well, I imagine it's probably in this one. You see how I've got this information over here? That is called your title block. And the title block tells you the information about what you're looking at. So, this is the loudspeaker plot section view for a show called A Little Night Music. I have not scaled it in any proportional way that could be measured using a ruler. It is in the Stevens Center. It was done by me. The company was Piedmont Opera. This was the date. This is drawing whatever number, whatever out of however many kind of thing. So this is called a title block. Now, you kind of want to have that on your drawings. And if you've seen any of the looks that we do, one of the first questions I ask is, what am I looking at? Because a lot of these plates end up looking very similar, especially when you start getting into a lot of detail. So what am I looking at? And that title block should tell you. So we are going to learn how to make a title block today. So your assignment is to create a title block, and you're actually going to create 3 of them. One for an 8.5 by 11 size of paper, which you will hardly ever use. One for an 11 by 17 inch size of paper, which you will probably use most often, around here anyway. And then also for a 24 by 36 inch piece of paper, which you will hardly ever use, but occasionally will be a thing.
Are they all in the same file?
They will be separate files. So you are going to turn in 5 things. You are going to turn in a new copy of your AutoCAD drawing template. your DWT file that has your title blocks ready to be inserted, so that those blocks have already been put into that file. You're going to turn in 3 separate DWG files. One is your 8.5 by 11 title block, your 11 by 17 title block, and your 24 by 36 title block. And then the 5th thing you're going to turn in is a single PDF file containing the plots, with your title block of your system diagram assignment from assignment 3, that annotated system diagram. You've already done that. All you're going to do is title block it and plot it. And the last figure plots that you just did. Okay? And I want that in a single PDF file. So today I'm going to show you how to do that. Questions so far? Okay. So let me close all of these and we'll get going here. So here's the thing about title blocks. Thanks, guys. See you later. Here's the thing about title blocks. There actually are some standards out there for what these ought to look like. Some that from like USITT and things. Some people follow those standards and some people do not. But you can look those up if you want to. I kind of prefer, well, there are 2 options you can do here that I will take you through here. So you can do, let's look here. This is paper space here. So you could do a title block that is like a little small rectangle down here in the bottom right that has everything. Some people like to do that. I kind of like the ones that do this just because it takes up a less intrusive chunk of the paper space. So most people tend to do this thing over here. Yes.
Can you actually come here for a second?
Yes.
I have this weird little like line thing that's in the middle of my screen, and it won't go away. But every time I click on it, it opens Avid. Do you know how to get that to go away?
I have no idea what that is.
I've never had this happen before, and now it won't open. But it keeps opening Avid whenever I click on it, and now it won't even open. I can't
Like Avid, the video editor?
This Avid application.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Okay, I thought maybe you would know, but
That's weird.
I have no idea what it is.
I have no idea what that is either. Can you right-click on it?
I cannot right click on it.
Very strange. What happens when you close the Avid App Manager? Oh. Huh. Very strange.
I don't know.
Okay, so let's start doing some of this. So you kind of need to figure out what is going to be in here. In my world, well, I'll show you mine in a second here. No, I'll show it to you right now, actually. Here's mine. So what we have here is I usually have a section that says drawing number 1 of however many, right? So we do that. We will do the title of the drawing. What is this thing? Is it a system diagram? Is it a loudspeaker plot? Is it whatever? I usually do the name of the show or the name of the project. Some indication of scale, because sometimes scale is important. Like, is this actually printed to scale? Like, does a 1/4 inch on paper equal a foot in real life? You could indicate that here. Usually my stuff is not done in a particular scale because that's not super important for us in sound. The name of the theater or the venue, like where is this going to happen? The name of the designer of whatever this thing is. The name of the person who drafted it, because sometimes that's a different person. The name of, in your case, the school, or this could be the name of the company that you're working with. The date that this plot was created. And I like to include the file name, the CAD file name in my title block, because if someone hands you this PDF, 3 years later and says, hey, let's do this, like let's remount this show or whatever, it's helpful to me to know what the DWG file name was so that I can go and find that on my computer somewhere so I can get to the source file. I don't have to reverse engineer it. Okay, so those are the bits of information I like to see. Some people also like to put like a logo for the show or different, but you know, you can go and look at examples of that. But this is what I would consider the bare minimum. Some people will, and I go back and forth on this a little bit. Some people will, instead of doing big titles that are oriented this way, they will do everything smaller but horizontal, which I actually kind of like. There's a part of me that kind of likes that.
Well, that's how most of the lighting
Yeah,
do theirs, right?
I think so. Yeah, Eric?
One question. So when we're creating these, should we still use decimal units?
I would, and I do usually. You don't have to, but I do. But here's the important thing. When you draw this, you are going to draw this, again, at full scale. So when I say draw me an 8.5 by 11 title block, I mean draw it that size. Ish. Because let me show you what happens. If you know you have this model space that you've been drawing in so far, okay? But look at these tabs down here. In every AutoCAD file, you get 2 layouts that come with it. And you can make as many of these as you want. But if I click on Layout 1, this is what I end up with. And this is meant to show you what would this thing look like when it gets plotted. This is the paper layout. Now, what I want you to notice is there is this dotted line that's surrounding it. That indicates the printing margin for whatever printer you currently have assigned to this layout. What that means is like the printer is not capable of printing anything outside of that dotted line. Okay? So you certainly don't want to have anything outside of that dotted line, or it's not going to get plotted or printed. Okay? And so if this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, you're not going to actually, and you are going to create a title block for an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, your title block is not going to be 8.5 inches by 11 inches, right? Because the printer just can't actually print all the way to the edge of the sheet. So it's going to be a little bit less. And there's some experimentation you have to do there. Rule of thumb for me is most printers-ish will end up with a 1/2 inch margin. That's kind of the rule of thumb for me that I kind of shoot for, is 1/2 inch on every side, which means like if it's 8.5 by 11, I'm going to draw a 7.5 inch tall thing, right? Because it's a 1/2 inch on either side, so I lose an inch.
And then 10 inches wide.
Right. That's kind of the rule of thumb, but even some printers don't even follow that. So the first thing that happens is, you know, you just draw some boxes and lines. Okay. So if I decide that I'm going to do the 8.5 by 11, I'm going to draw a line that is 7.5 inches tall. Okay? And then I'm going to decide how wide that is. And maybe I'm just going to do, I don't want to chew up more than an inch, so I'm just going to do 1 inch wide. And then I'll just draw this out like this. There's my title block. That's the space I'm going to put all the information in. Okay, and then I'm going to, I'll create my drawing thing. I'll do 1 inch up from here. Oops. Make my little rectangle. That's where my drawing number will go. And then maybe I'll go midway through here and draw a line there and one here. And these 2 lines will be the drawing title and the name of the project. And then I'll give myself 2 areas. So I'm going to draw myself a little guideline here from this point to that point so that I have a new midpoint to attach to. Because I just want to be halfway through there. There we go. And then I can delete that guideline. So I'll give myself that space for some other things. And then I want to create maybe 3 rows here. So I'll give myself a guideline right there, which would be there.
How long
I made it an inch. I mean, I'm just
Okay.
I'm just spitballing here. I'm not necessarily. You should give this some thought when you do it, right? As far as what you want this to look like. And then I'm going to mirror this line across that center here. Oops. MI. This from here to there. Now that didn't quite work out, did it? So let me try something else here. There, I'm gonna put it there. Yeah.
To get like the link that you had, you can just press line, select the point, then just type 7,
Yep.
and then cut up.
Yep. Exactly. There we go. Now I got it.
Make sure I'm not just.
Okay, so I've just made a little structure here for how I'm going to put this in. Okay? You with me so far? All right. So now what I'm going to do is start plopping things in here. So maybe I'll do the drawing title here. Like, what is that? So I'm going to do a single line text, and I will start it there. The height will be from here to there, and the text will be drawing title. Let me rotate that. Okay. So that's obviously, I'm touching the border there. So I'm going to want to have that height be a little bit less. So let's see. We're going to do, instead of 0.5, I'll do 0.4. Or maybe 0.35. And then I'll give myself a little bit of space there. Now, here's what's going to happen. I want to be able to use this title block over and over and over again. And I want to be able to just type in whatever the thing is. And this is where you're going to create little fields. Okay. Now, what you're going to want to do is, this is your text, right? But what you're really going to want to do is, you see, if you go to, if I just do this, then it's just going to say drawing title, and it might go outside of the box, it might not, right? It might fit, it might not. But instead, I'm going to use what's called a field. Or am I doing that right? I don't think, some of these are fields. This is a field because this is that's how you get the file name and stuff. But this is, yeah, I think I got this right. Attribute. Yes, okay. So what you're going to want to do for these, there's this feature called attributes, and you're going to type an attribute definition, ATT. And you're going to say, all right, what is the tag here is, this will be the drawing title. And a prompt is, this is the question that's going to be asked of you when AutoCAD tells you that it's time to put the right information here. So what is the drawing title? And then I want to put a default. So by default, if I do nothing else, I just want it to say drawing title. Text style, I should make my text styles. I haven't imported them in here. I'll use standard for now, but I'll fix it later. Justification, I want to use fit, because no matter what I put in here, I want it to fit inside the box I'm going to draw it in. And that way AutoCAD will stretch or scale the text appropriately.
Oh, never mind.
And then the text height I ended up using was 0.35, I think. And now it's going to say, where do you want to put it? First endpoint will be here. Second endpoint is there. And now it fits. Okay? Now here's what happens. Once I've got that in here, let me fix my height. That didn't quite translate. So I go over to the height. I'm going to do 0.35. There, that fits. And then I can put my text style in. And you can see now that I've got these fields now of tag, prompt, value, text style, justify, so on and so forth. Now, that will then prompt me to change that. Now, what about let me do the fields now. So I'm going to say that this one will be, actually this one will be date. So I'm going to say insert a field, and I want date and time, plot date. What was the date that this thing was plotted? Okay, and I can set the format for this. And I can choose that. It says, where do you want to put that? I want to put that here. And let's see if it'll let me rotate it. It will, but it sure looks weird, doesn't it? I might need to style this a little bit. This text height will be like 0.2. Yeah, this is a little clunky. The way I usually do it is I'll go and get the thing. And you see where it says field expression? I'm going to copy that. And then you can make your own text object for single line text. And the height will be 0.2. Rotation will be 90, I think. And then I'm going to put in here, just type something in there for now. And I can put in here, I can paste that field definition in the contents. And then what will happen is when I plot this, it'll show up that way. Now, let me skip ahead now and show you what we end up with. So you see here, I've got a field that has that has that definition in it. I've got another one that's the file name. So I went and got, for field, the file name. And I can say how I want that to look. I don't want the path, I just want the file name only. And that's what it would look like when I do it. And you can say how you want to format it. And there's that field, and you can put that in. So here, I believe, looks like I did those as attribute definitions as well. Yeah. To make them fit. So I think that must be attribute definition. Yeah, so this is where I would put the default. I would put the the text there, and this would be date. What is the date? And if I put that in there, that's what it would look like. And then I suspect, sorry, they've changed this on me. It's looking different than it used to. Yeah, that should work. Because this one, I didn't do a prompt. Order tabloid new. Let's see if it works. I think that should work. Let's double check. So I've done a combination of attribute definitions where we've got drawing title and I'm asking for a prompt and I'm putting in the justification, and that fit justification is very important so that as that changes, it doesn't go outside of the box. It'll always scale it. Now I've also done little tiny just text here to just label what this thing is, you know, independently of what I end up putting there, but this is where the title will be. This is where the show will be, just so that I see that. Now here's what then will happen. What I prefer to do these days is actually not draw the whole box. Instead, I will just draw a rectangle around the part that I'm doing. That way it can scale a little bit better to the paper size. So something like that. And then I'm going to move this. And I'm going to put this spot at 0, 0. Did it do it? No. Try it again. Move, base point, 0, 0. Why does it keep snapping back? Move, base point.
For everything but X.
What's that?
Never mind.
All right, I may have to cheat here. I don't know, it keeps snapping me back. I'm going to drop a point at 0, 0, and then I'm going to snap to that point. So I'll put this there. There we go.
Question.
Yes.
The point you just did.
Yeah.
So there is a place you snap in the middle of it, right?
Yeah.
How do I get that?
You turn on node snapping in Object Snap.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that would have been a lot easier.
Yes. All right. So now I just want to show you what this looks like when I get it done. So yes, we'll save that there. Let me go and get this. So here's the system diagram. Now here's what happens. I go to Layout View. And I'm going to go to Page Setup. I right-click on this Layout View and I say Page Setup. And this is where I want to put the size of paper. And I want 11 by 17.
Wait, how do you, page setup?
You right-click on the layout name and select Edit Page Setup. And you want to select the printer. I'm going to select Clarence, which is this printer here. But you can just do anything you want. But if you need a printer that will do 11 by 17, plug your computer into one of these network ports here, and you'll see Clarence show up, and Clarence is this printer. And then you can add that as a printer on your computer, and then you'll have that definition. But you can also use the DWG to PDF printer, which is probably most of what you're going to do most days. But I'm going to use Clarence, tabloid. And now it goes to that different size. Now, here I am in paper space. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to a, let's see, I'm going to create a layer here for title block. I'm going to go to that layer. And now I'm going to insert a block. And a block is just an AutoCAD file that you're going to pull in lock, stock, and barrel, all one thing. Let's see. Did they change this on me now, too? They did. I think I've got to put it in this way. Let's see if it'll give it to me this way. What did they do? Oh, here it is. Okay. So when I go, they moved this with the latest version. So you go to Insert Block, and it pulls up this little thing here. And you want to go to DWG. And then you see this little button here which says Browse to insert a drawing as a block into the current drawing, which is what I want. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to get my thing. Where is it? So documentation, assignments, border tabloid. There it is. So I hit open, and now I get this whole thing. See? And now I can stick it in my drawing. And when I stick it there, I click, and it pops this up. And all those attribute definitions that I created, it's going to ask me for what these are. What is the drawing number? This is drawing 1. Of how many drawings? I don't know, let's say 10. The drawing title. This is the system diagram. What is the name of the show? A Little Night Music. Who's the drafter? Me. What is the theater? Stevens Center. Who's the designer? Me. No scale. All right, next. What is the school? UNC School of the Arts. And notice how the things I did as fields, it's already populated those with the date and the file name. Now I can go and convert it to just regular text, or I can update it, or I can edit it, or whatever here. But if I put that field definition in there, it will automatically populate that information. Okay? And then I confirm, and there it is. It put it all in there for me. Now all I got to do is you get this little viewport here. This is the thing that lets you see your drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this to line up with my title block. Okay, and looks like I've got some room. I could make it a little bit bigger. So I'll stretch it out to here. Now what I'll do is I'm going to click on that viewport, and I'll double click inside of it. And now I enter model space. So now I can zoom around in the drawing. I could even draw in here if I wanted. But this is where I fit the drawing into here. So I do a zoom, and I select it. And then if I click outside of the viewport, double click outside, it switches back to paper space. And now I've got the whole thing. So if I go back here and go to Edit Page Setup, you can say, how do you want it to plot? Print as displayed. Do you want to do grayscale? Do you want to do monochrome? Whatever. I'm going to do monochrome for this one because there's no color I need to deal with. And then I'm going to tell it to go ahead and display the plot style. There. That's what it'll end up looking like when I actually plot it. Okay. So now at this point, I just have to go to Print. And if I've got clearance, so if I hit print right now, it would come out of the printer. And should I try it? Let's see what happens. It might take a second. But then the other thing I can do is if I go to plot or print, I can on the Mac I can just do save as PDF right here. And it will give me a PDF of that same layout. Now, if you're on Windows, you would have to select the DWG to PDF printer object, and then you just hit plot, and it would give you a PDF file. Okay? So once you get that title block ready to go, then you just insert it as a block into Paperspace as many times as you want. And now that I've put it in once, it should be in here now as something I can put in. Yeah, here it is. So I can now use this over and over again. I can go to a different layout now, and I can put it in here too. Right? And it's ready to go. And I just double click on it, and here's all my things I can change, so on and so forth. Let's do really quickly the loudspeaker one. So if I go to this one. Okay, so here's where I've put it in, and I've created different layouts here. I've got the ground plan for the balcony, I've got the ground plan for the orchestra area, and I've got one for the section. Now the important thing I want you to notice here is that I have gone in, because I want my stuff to be in color, but I don't want anything else to be in color. What I did is I went ahead and I selected all the layers here, but deselected my layer. Oops. I just command clicked on that. And then I set the color to white for all layers. And then my layer still has color. And so whatever layers you're using would still have color. And then they would plot with color, but nothing else would. And then when you do your plot, you go to your edit page, and you would do print as displayed, which would include the color, and the architecture is not that color. That's the shortcut for that. So your mission, which I assume you will accept, is to make a title block. And this is, don't copy mine, actually. This is the first time I'm going to tell you, don't just copy mine. Make your own.
Be inventive.
Yeah, make it look professional. Hopefully you'll use this for the rest of your life if you do it right. I made this title block 20 years ago. I tweaked it for the first time ever 3 years ago when I started teaching this class. And I updated it for a couple of little tweaks, but I've been using the same one for years. Okay, so make yourself a title block. If it's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. You've got the rest of your life to tweak it and make it better. But what I really want to see you do is play around with this idea of an attribute definition. So that ATT definition, put that in there, and create that tag. This idea of tag, value, and prompt. So the command here is ATT. And you put it all in here, you do your text style, your justifications, your height, all that stuff. And most of the time your justification is going to be fit for these attribute definitions. Oh, look, they gave you this. Oh, okay, perfect. Here we go. New change. I just found it. This is why I was struggling earlier, because they moved it. But when you make an attribute definition, you see this little button next to default? You can click that, and here's all your fields. That's amazing. That's new. So you can go in and get your plot date and just plop it in there. And now that field's ready to go. Oh, that's so much better. I'm glad I found that, because that looked different, and I couldn't figure out why. This is the thing about AutoCAD, is they change stuff. Every year they change stuff on you, so that they can justify charging you money again for a subscription. So decide whether your default is going to be something that you come up with, which in like drawing title, just something generic that's always going to be there, or is it going to be a field, which would be some sort of data you pull from the file. And here's a ton of stuff you can do. Date and time, the file name, there's all sorts of things you can pull in here. The ones that you're really going to want to get is the plot date and the file name, just so that is in there in your title block. I found that to be so helpful to know. How old is this thing? Oh, that was the one I plotted last week. Oh, there's been a new one since then. Okay, well, so having the date and the file name is super important. So attribute definitions, do that. And then these little things that I just have the little labels here, that's just a regular single line text where that's never going to change. That's always going to say title. Okay. And you want to make 3 different ones of these. One that would fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, one that would fit on 11 by 17, and one that would fit on a 24 by 36.
So in theory, could we just copy and paste the one and then scale it to the size of the other?
That's probably where I would start,
Okay.
but you will find that, you're going to have to make some tweaks once you scale it. It's not going to scale exactly the way you want. Okay? So you all have, as part of your computerage fees from the School of the Arts, a free subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud. Do you know this about these? Okay. With that comes the full version of Adobe Acrobat. Did you know that? You should go and get that full version of Adobe Acrobat, because it is with Adobe Acrobat that you can merge these PDF files into one file. So when you open Adobe Acrobat, the full version of Adobe Acrobat, you can do File, Create, and you do PDF, combine files into a single PDF. See that option there? And here you can just drag and drop those individual PDF plots that you make, or you can click this Add Files and go navigate and find them. But you can just keep dragging and dropping multiple PDF files in here, and then it will save it as one PDF file that has all of your plots in it. That's how, if you've seen the looks, people give me one PDF file that has all those different pages. Those different pages were individual PDF files at one point, but they used Acrobat to merge them all together. So that is your mission for this week, is just to review. I want you to create one of those dynamic title blocks that has the prompts and the fields and all that kind of stuff. And you want to make 3 copies of it. 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17, 24 by 36. I want you to go then to your DWT file, your template file, and insert those as blocks into your block library. So that's part of your template. So when you move your template, it'll be there. Okay? So I want you to give me a new DWT file that's the same one that you gave me before, but I want to see that those blocks are in there. We've inserted them into that block library that I showed you. Then I want you to give me 3 different DWG files that give me the source files for those title blocks, because I want to see how you did it. And then I want you to turn in a PDF file that has your system diagram from assignment 3 and your 3 loudspeaker plot views from today's assignment, or from last week's assignment, plotted to a PDF with your title block. And then use Adobe Acrobat to merge them all into one PDF file and turn that in. That'd be the 5th file you turn in. Questions?
I have questions, but I feel like they all be answered if I rewatch the video that you're recording.
Okay. You can ask it again if you want, real quick.
I'm still confused on the fields.
Okay. Let's try it again. I know I did not do a very good job of explaining that because it was looking different to me, and I was like, "Why is this looking different? This doesn't make any sense to me."
I did it and I followed through, and then I looked up and we were.
Where can you get Adobe Acrobat?
It's part of the Creative Cloud. There's some information on the school. If you go to the Information IT Help Desk website and go to the area for students, it'll give you information about how to get that.
They're also all over the pickle jar. There are posters everywhere with the barcodes.
Let me try it here. Let me try make a new one. I'm just going to delete. I'm going to move this out. Let's see if we can make another one. So, ATT def. Okay, so I'm going to say this will be date.
Also, I have a question. Should we be making, every time we make a new drawing, should we be opening it with the template we made? That way it has the pre-saved, like, text and that kind of stuff?
Yes,
Cool.
definitely.
And then there you go.
I think my question more so lies on how did you get each part of that box that you made, like the rectangle, to have those specific parts.
Say again.
So you know how we assign like each part of those, what's it called? Like the text in that box? Like in each section, we said it to have all that.
Uh-huh.
How did you do that? I think it was in the field, but then I got lost.
Okay, so yeah, I just did it. So you're going to do, you mean, you're not asking about how do you draw the boxes. You're talking about how do you put the thing in the boxes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I just did. So what you're going to do is you're going to do ATT for ATT or ATT def, but just ATT enter will do it. And it brings up this window. Okay? And if it's something that you're going to type in, like the drawing title or something like that, then you're going to want to give yourself a prompt, which is like the question you're going to ask yourself. And then the default is, what will it be if I don't type anything in? Right? But if you want it to be a field is something that will pull data from your file, like the file name or the plot date or something like that. And you get that by just clicking on this little button next to it to get that field expression and plop it in there. And then here you say, what text style are you going to use for this? What's your justification going to be? Usually this will be fit for a title block. What's your text height? So on and so forth. So that's where you put all that in. And then you hit save. Oh, tag, sorry. Put date in there. And now it says, where do you want to put this thing? So I'm going to stick it there and specify the next. Because I set fit, then it's going to ask me for, okay, fit how? Fit where? Fit into what? And so what's the second point? So I'm going to do it just shy of the actual line because ultimately I don't want it to touch. So I'm going to put it there. And there, put it in there. And then I can nudge it a little bit, however I want, and it'll fit.
Now I got it.
Right? And then it'll automatically update that when you put it in there. Other questions? Yes.
So do you want us to submit a, oh wait, we're just submitting a DWG of this sort of thing, but
Right.
when we convert it to a PDF, do you want it on like this layout?
Well, you can make, you hit the plus button to make however many layouts you want. You can use the default layouts or not, doesn't really matter. The layout is what you have to do to then create the plot. So you're going to go back to those source files, the system diagram you did and the loudspeaker file you did, and you're going to go and
Insert them.
yeah, you can even just start with a whole new layout and put your title block on there, adjust the viewport, so and get it all to fit. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Because like with this one layout, I didn't know if it was supposed to make the diagram really that small.
Yeah, so if you double click inside of that viewport, you'll be able to zoom and fill it up. So now you're in model space, and you can scroll and zoom and everything to get it to fit inside that window. Okay. Other questions?
Not yet. There will be.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right. So yes, reach out to me during the week as this comes up, and is that Lee? Probably. So I can give you 5 minutes here to mess with it, and then I'm going to cut us off early because I've got to head over to the next thing with Joanna, who's here today interviewing. And you guys can meet her and hear more from her at 1 if you want to come at 1 for that. So I'll give you 5 minutes to play with this and see if you run into any problems, and then we'll stop.
It is not allowing me to change my text type when I'm doing an absolute definition. Like it's just not. Like
You must have a text height defined in that text style.
I do, yeah.
So you'll want to maybe make a copy of that text style that doesn't have
Gotcha.
a height defined, so it'll let you dictate it for your title block. I do think you might be able to, after you insert it, you might be able to go and change it, but
That's what I was trying to do, and
Do the field.
What does it open up? Avid?
Yeah, it opens
Fit.
up my
Okay.
And I'll just put it in the corner.
Yep.
This way, endpoint.
and I just delete it.
Go there. Yep. Right. Okay. Now, if you click on it, now if you go in here where it says 1.5, can you change that now there?
Okay, yeah.
So that it'll let you override the text style there if you want. Okay. And by the way, this is also, you may want to experiment with some different fonts. You remember where I said before, like use the plotter style fonts for most of your labels in CAD, but in your title block, it actually makes more sense to use printer style fonts like the True Types, because this will be usually printed pretty large, and so you don't have to worry about it shrinking and bleeding. So you might think about experimenting with some, still keep in mind that idea of fixed width, and you don't want G's like, going down underneath your line or something. So keep an eye on that stuff, but feel free to experiment with fonts on this.
So I could, in theory, make a entirely new. What did you just say? Like what is it called?
Text style?
Textile. Yes.
Yeah, just for your title block.
Defined type with
Yeah.
a specific style. Okay.
Yeah, and with a different font or something. You don't have to use only the text styles you've already made. You can make new ones for your title block. Anybody else got any questions?
So when we're changing the size from like 8.5 to 11 and 11 to 17, would I be changing that size on AutoCAD itself, or would I just be resizing that on the part where we're just like?
So you could draw, what I would, what you might want to try is draw it for like the 11 by 17. And then make a copy of that DWG file, open it up again, and see if you can just take that thing and scale it. And see what happens when you scale it. You might find there's some things that have to be tweaked to make it not, look weird.
So when you just want the DWG, so it would be just this, right?
So that's one of the things I want is I want 3 DWG files, one for each of your source file title blocks, right? So you'll make this one, you'll save that as your title block for 11 by 17. And then you will take this now and do a save as, and do save as my title block 8.5 by 11.
Oh, so I
and open that as a second file, and then edit that one to stretch it, right?
So I wouldn't be resizing this for another size. If that's what you're saying. 'Cause
Right. So you don't want to put all 3 of them in the same file. So you'll just start with one, and then do a save as, and open that copy. And then, yes, scale it or adjust it to fit that size and save that as a new file, right? So you'll have 3 different files. One is the 8.5 by 11, one is the 11 by 17, and one is the 24 by 36.
So just to get it right. So I would have all the lettering in there.
Yeah.
And I'd save it as a 8.5 by 11.
Yep.
And I'd be done with it. So then I would click save as and just basically just rename it by 11 by 17.
Yes, and then you have to open that new file now and adjust the size of that title block
So
to
when
fit
I-
that bigger piece of paper.
When I would adjust the size, if it's when it's like 11, how would I go by doing that? If
Well,
this isn't the,
what I would do is draw a line. So like draw a line that starts there and is 10 inches tall. Okay, that just gives you a guideline. So now you can do a scale on this.
so this would have to be smaller than this line.
Yeah, so type scale. And select this thing that you drew. Okay, and hit enter. Now put your base point down there. And you want to do R for reference. And click there, that bottom corner, and then up here at the top corner. And now bring it down, and do a snap tracking off of the top of that.
Oh, okay. I thought it was going to be more complex, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right?
okay. Yeah.
Now you might find that what'll happen is the text may not scale exactly the way you want it to, so you'll have to go in and tweak that a little bit.
Okay.
But that's probably the quickest way to do it. Other questions? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. Again, I'm still on the template because I think So if I'm including this template with every drawing,
Yeah.
let me try to close it. This and then new, and then these are all the templates that are provided, or do I need to this?
Okay, I think I may have steered you wrong for a second there. Now I'm thinking about it because
Okay.
what I thought you were asking was, should I be using my template every time I make a new file, a new drawing? And the answer is yes, when you're making an actual drawing for a show or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you would not use your template to make these title blocks. Okay? Because you are ultimately going to insert these title blocks into your template as blocks.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So you would make the title blocks using just the default AutoCAD 2D template file.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And then once you have them, you would insert them as blocks into your template so you have them always available. Because then, if you do create all of your new files off of your template, then you will always have that title block ready to be inserted. Right? So, sorry about that.
No,
I
you're
misunderstood
good.
what you were asking.
It probably wasn't very clear when I was asking. I'm
Okay.
kind of bad at asking questions.
Other questions?
Yep.
Okay.
Do we still need to include those little tiny titles?
That's in my title block. That's how I did it. But I want to give you guys, you can have some flexibility here to be creative. Go look at some title blocks. Go look at some of the paperwork that's hanging on the wall in DMP. Look at some of the paperwork that comes off the shows and stuff for the looks and things, and figure out what you like. And this is where you can express yourself a little bit. Okay. But make it look professional. That's the only thing I would say is make it look professional. Okay. All right. Well,